I'm Matt Verderam, this is Meltdown Tuesday, and today we talk about a very serious problem with the NFL. The National Football League, it has been around for close to 100 years at this point, and right now might be the most difficult period that the league has ever faced. Yes, it is standing on great financial ground, but the problem now is actually turning into who is leading the league, and of course that is Commissioner Roger Goodell. Goodell and the NFL agreed back in 2012 to give $30 million to the National Institutes of Health in hopes of figuring out more than we already know about CTE and the possible connection it may have to concussions in the game. And so what does Goodell do? And what does the league do? They decide to try to run the show after giving the money to the NIH, $16 million of which was going to be to fund a huge study that was going to take 7 years. When they found out Dr. Robert Stern was going to do it out of Boston University, they reneged on the promise. And who paid for it? You did, the taxpayers. They are on the hook for $16 million, and the NFL doesn't care. The NFL can now say it's not involved. And now it's a big, big problem because Congress is getting involved, 91 pages worth of involved. The NFL needs to get over this idea that CTE isn't its problem. It is the NFL's problem. It is the biggest problem. Forget about marketing and playing overseas. Forget about playing in Mexico. Forget about all of that. Your biggest problem, Mr. Goodell, is trying to figure out how to make head injuries go away, or at least curtail them as much as humanly possible. This has been your biggest flaw as a commissioner, and that's saying quite a lot considering the way you've handled domestic violence issues throughout your tenure. Everybody likes to talk about how the NFL has gotten tougher, but really it was only because of a TMZ video that showed Ray Rice knocking out John A. Palmer in a hotel elevator. That is the only reason Rice is not still playing in the league. That and the fact that he averaged less than 3.5 yards per carry the last year of his career. If he was still productive, you better believe some team would have given him a shot. There's no question about it. Just ask Greg Hardy. The NFL has to get this right. And by the way, as we're going through all these other issues, there's a more minor issue on the table, and that is Tom Brady and his 4-game suspension. Brady now appealing it once more, did this last year, had his 4-game ban overturned. Now it's been put back into place, and now Brady going for that second appeal. And you know what? You can blame Tom Brady. You could say, well, he's guilty. Well, the reality of it is we don't know that he's guilty. And why? Because the National Football League screwed the pooch again, making a ridiculous mess of a very simple situation. Did he deflate the footballs? Probably, or at least had knowledge of it, but you know what? Nobody can prove that. So the NFL is stuck holding the bag. Might as well put it over their head at this point, cut 2 eye holes in it and write dunce on the top, because that's the way it's looking right now for Goodell and all of his minions. And again, we all know how this is going to play out. The suspension is going to be delayed. Brady's going to play a full 16 games for the Patriots. 31 fan bases are going to call him a cheater, and one fan base is not going to care because it's going to be back in the AFC playoffs again. Brady is not the problem. It is Goodell who is the problem, and it is the NFL Players Association who's the problem. DeMaurice Smith, the leader of the union, signed a CBA back in 2011 that stated that Goodell could be judge, jury, and executioner of all things league matters. That is a disaster. What union leader in a million years would allow the boss of all of his employees to be absolute carte blanche over everything? You'd have to be insane, especially since Smith spent most of that time while negotiating for the CBA talking about how worthless Goodell was in so many different venues, and yet you give him all the power. This falls on the NFLPA and it falls on Goodell. You could talk about whether or not Brady screwed around with the footballs. You could talk about whether he told a couple of guys to screw around with the football. But the bottom line is Goodell and the NFLPA, they're the ones screwing with your football.